What compels man to risk life and limb to conquer mountains is something that few would understand. Perhaps it is within our primal needs to explore and challenge ourselves. Indeed, it is that hunger for adventure that takes us to the peaks of Everest, which have long been seen as the pinnacle of achievement of undoubtedly brave men and women. However, over the decades, hundreds of climbers have lost their lives trying to summit Mount Everest. Here are the top 5 worst disasters that the mountain has ever seen. In 1974, an ambitious expedition led by Frenchman Gerard de Vaursux set out to make a complete ascent of the mountain's formidable West Ridge. Though first ascent credit generally goes to Willie Unsoeld and Tom Hornbein for their 1963 climb, the two Americans had relied on several route variations. They hadn't climbed the entire ridge to the summit. De Vaursux and 19 team members intended to straighten the route out. They arrived in late August, after, they hoped, the monsoons, which regularly deposit deep unstable snow across the mountain's flanks. They knew the weather would be a gamble, but they didn't count on losing. The monsoons kicked back in whilst the climbers were spread across 3 high camps. During the night of September 9th, a large avalanche flushed over the tents, burying de Vaursux and 5 others. They were never found in the debris. It was one of the worst single incidents ever recorded on the peak, and climbers avoided the West Ridge for the next 5 years. In 1998, at aged 41, Hawaiian-born Frances Arventine became the first American woman to reach the top of Everest without supplemental oxygen. She had ascended via the northeast ridge with her husband, Sergei, but the climb had taken its toll, and on the way down, in the dark, the pair became separated. When Francis did not show up at the camp, Sergei, who believed his wife had been ahead of him, gathered oxygen and medication and set back up the ridge at first light to find her. The next 48 hours were grim. A separate team found Francis frostbitten and half-conscious high on the north face. They spent an hour trying to revive her, but eventually left. A similar incident occurred when Cathy O'Dowd and Ian Woodall encountered Francis as they ascended. Again, attempts to revive her failed, though she was still alive. By the 3rd day, climbers passing reported that she had died. Nearby was a rope and ice axe belonging to Sergei, but he was nowhere to be seen. His body was found years later, lower on the north face, apparently having fallen to his death. On May 10th and 11th, 1996, 8 people were caught in a blizzard and died on Mount Everest during a summit attempt. In that entire season, a total of 12 people died trying to reach the summit, making this the deadliest year on Mount Everest until only recently. The disaster thriller adventure film Everest, that was released late last year, is based on the real events of the 1996 Mount Everest disaster. In Everest, climbers from 2 different expeditions fight for survival during a fierce and devastating snowstorm. Other disastrous events have occurred on Mount Everest, but that was undoubtedly the worst event up until that point in history. It gained wide publicity and raised questions about the commercialization of Everest. On April 25, 2015, a huge earthquake measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale struck Nepal. The shaking from the quake triggered an avalanche from Pamori into base camp on Mount Everest. Between 700 and 1,000 people were on or near the mountain when the earthquake struck, and at least 22 people were killed, making it the deadliest disaster on the mountain to date. The 1924 Everest Expedition seemed full of promise. It was George Mallory's 3rd trip, and he believed that he had deciphered much of the route. The summit was indeed within his grasp. He was determined and did not want to come back again. What his climbing partner Andrew Irvine lacked in experience, he made up for in raw athleticism and mechanical skill. He was an expert of the oxygen system. The pair was last seen on June 8th around 1 PM by Noel Oddle, a teammate who had climbed part way up the north face, and during the break in the clouds he observed none other than Mallory and Irvine moving expeditiously towards the summit before the clouds closed back in again. Mallory's body was found in 1999, well preserved high on the north face. Broken bones indicated a lethal fall. Irvine's body has never been discovered, nor has the camera that the 2 men are known to have had with them. Although many experts seem to conclude that the chance that Mallory and Irvine reached the summit is slim, the mystery endures, as do periodic searches for the camera and further clues that it might hold. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with my weekly videos. Also, don't forget to keep in touch on all my social media sites, the links are down below. See you next time.